Howdy. I'm sure that all you have heard of the great A&M traditions that we hold here at the university. Well, however, to me, there's none finer than Texas A&M Aggie Bonfire. The Aggie Bonfire started over a century ago at Texas A&M, and it has had tremendous impact on not only the university, its current, former students, and the community as a whole. It unified former and current students on its burning desire to beat the hell out of TU every year. Now, the tradition itself is one that is most storied tradition at A&M, and what a lot of the students now hold dear and do not know what happened about it. Now, it evolved in many different ways since its construction, and it has had a positive impact for Aggies everywhere. Now, in order to fully understand what the bonfire means to an Aggie, one must first know how it began, the history behind it. Then, also, they must know the importance and impact it has had on the community and its current and former students. And lastly, the tragedy that ended it all. Now, let's get it started. With over a century ago, Texas A&M's biggest traditions began, and is known today as the Aggie Bonfire. It started when a bunch of students banded together to promote school spirit during sporting events. Now, according to Texas A&M University website, the first Aggie Bonfire was constructed in 1909. Now, the first one was held on campus at Simpson Drill Field, and what was later moved to the northeast side of campus on the polo fields due to safety and mostly because of population concerns, because so many people were going to it. Now, during the early years of the bonfire on campus on the Simpson Drill Field was made for just sporting events in general, but a decade later it turned into being against Texas University in football, and this was held during Thanksgiving. Now, the bonfire was constructed out of wood, piles, and trash for nearly 2 decades, and freshmen were obligated to build the fire to show their worth and their respect to the university. As stated before, the bonfire evolved to become what every Aggie's burning desire to beat the hell out of TU, and that's what it stands for. Now, after the early years of the Aggie Bonfire, the tradition started to, according to a source in the Texas Monthly, started to symbolize 2 things: a burning desire to beat the team from the University of Texas, and the underlying flame love that every Aggie has for his school. And this was from a 1947 A&M freshman. It was an article in Texas Monthly. Now, throughout the years, Aggie Bonfire became synonymous with Texas A&M. Everybody knew Texas A&M because of the bonfire. And it was extremely important to anyone who was there or had a part in its construction. Now, the bonfire was incorporated in a lot of different traditions at Texas A&M. Of course, the yell practice. They normally burned it after yell practice, and it also drew up to 30,000 to 75,000 people per bonfire. And you got to think this was back in like the 70s and 80s, so that was a lot of people back then. Now there was only one year that Texas A&M did not burn the bonfire, and that was in 1963, and it was due to out of the respect of the JFK assassination. Those students wanted to burn the bonfire out of respect. Now, the people that were responsible for its construction, it transferred from the Yell Leaders to the Red Pops, which is a different organization that was held on campus a long time ago. And this was in 1967. Now, according to Guinness Book of Records, in 1969, A&M constructed the largest bonfire ever assembled, and it held at 109 feet 10 inches. Now, that was back in 1969. In 1970, they changed the outlaw. They changed the stipulations due to safety concerns, and that was because the university would rule that it couldn't reach the height over 55 feet in height and 45 feet in width. Now, its design and building procedures also changed drastically. As you can show this timeline from my friend who used to cut for the Aggie Bonfire, the off-campus one. It normally started in October, 4 weeks before the actual burning of the bonfire. Now, they stacked the wood 3 weeks prior, about early November. 10 days before the bonfire, they actually started stacking the wood into the 4 levels. Now, the finish was all piled to the red pots. They were responsible for the last 2 levels of the of the bonfire. And this was normally two or 3 days, one day before the actual burn. Now, you're probably wondering how they light this thing. They doused the thing in jet fuel and then waited until after Yale practice when everybody from the Yale came over to bonfire and people were already still waiting there to skip Yale and went and go ahead and light the thing. Now, after all those years of the storied tradition, the tragedy struck the Aggie family in the worst possible way, in a blink of an eye. On November 18th, 1999, A&M Aggies experienced the worst nightmare that came true at 2:42 a.m. in the morning when the bonfire collapsed. Now, also according to the Texas A&M University website, remembering the bonfire, the incident killed 12 Aggies, one former student, and injured 27 more Aggies in the process. The rescue efforts took over 24 hours and involved everybody, students, football players, rescue teams, everything in that nature. Now, 8 days later, the A&M played Texas University in football. We beat them 20-16 in one of the most emotional games ever at Kyle Field. Now, the university stopped bonfire after the collapse in 1999. It was basically for safety concerns, pending lawsuits, and also out of the respect of all the victims that died that day. In 2004, Texas A&M University built the Bonfire Memorial, basically remembering the 12 lives that were lost that day, and that is now in the construction of the site. Also, 2 years later, in 2006, they formed an off-campus organization to keep the tradition alive, known as the Aggie Bonfire off campus. That is now students go there. Now, in closing, the Aggie Bonfire is no longer sponsored by the university, and it's still an important part of the A&M traditions. It is not sponsored by the university, but it is still held by students, for students, built by students. It doesn't reach over 45 feet. Now, yeah, it started over a century ago, but it still lies dear in this Aggie's heart, and hopefully all you Aggies as well. Now, so in the course of this speech, I informed you of something about that deals with the Aggie Bonfire and why it's important to me and the Texas A&M family. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope as much as I have. Thank you.